afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our second Let's Talk About webinar. I'm Siobhan Smith, Lead for Diversity and Inclusion at KTN, and it's my honour to introduce our host for today's webinar, Sue Dunkerton. Sue Dunkerton is now Director for Special Projects at KTN, having been involved with KTN and its predecessors since 2002. She was a materials engineer by background with a long history in contract R&D at TWI, working across various sectors, including oil and gas, aerospace, manufacturing, and health. Since joining KTN in 2014, Sue has led teams across many parts of the business, with most time spent with life sciences, agri-food, materials, chemistry, and industrial biotechnology. Sue has long been a champion for equality, diversity, and inclusion, supporting KTN's work in this field, and has been a key champion and pillar of support for women in innovation and young innovators, as well as being passionate about highlighting the importance of EDI for innovation. Sue received her OBE in the Queen's New Year's Honours in 2014 in recognition of her contribution to the fields of health and engineering. And today, Sue, alongside our panellists, will be discussing why you are not alone. So over to you, Sue.
Thanks, Joanne. It's really great to be here, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with three individuals who I've just been getting to know. And it's fair to say, I think we'll have some things in common, but there'll be other things that where we're actually quite diverse, and hopefully you'll learn from that as we go along. So I'm going to make a quick introduction to each of our panelists or conversationalists. This is all about having a conversation. I'll kick off with Amy Scanlon. Amy, very interesting background. She spent 15 years as a computer science teacher in a range of really high profile schools in London. So she really knows what it's like to work under pressure, I'd say. She really took the learning from that experience to make a good and different career change to support tech startups at an organisation called OneTech. So Amy will be able to tell us more about that, but it's a not-for-profit organisation set up specifically to support underrepresented founders, entrepreneurs, and those seeking a career in tech. And this is, I think, is at the heart of not being alone, having that supportive infrastructure, and one that supports women or people who identify as Black, Asian, or minority ethnic. And to help through every stage of innovation, from ideation right through to traction into the market and growth. So Amy also is passionate about people and helping them through structured support. So very much welcome to you, Amy. If I move on to Sian, Sian, again, really interesting background. She now runs her own coaching and training business. So I think comes at this from a slightly different perspective. I think we can see the Sian Razzle Coaching and Training banner behind Sian, and she's a qualified personal performance coach. Impressively, I think was Small Business Coach of the Year for 2017, and also shortlisted as Executive Coach for 2018. So great credentials. And Sian's offering that one-to-one and team support through coaching, facilitation, enabling change. And it's really building on her experience as really going back, I don't want to say too many years, Sian, but as a few years ago as a research scientist with quite a number of years of corporate experience in the pharmaceutical industry, and covering both R&D, research and development, and also into IT. So I think you've worked across a number of different sectors, private and public, also large and small organizations. So some names that we'll really know, like AstraZeneca, Vocalink, which is linked to MasterCards, the National Physical Laboratory, the Samaritan, so something really quite different there, other engineering companies, as well as private individuals and micro and small business owners. So welcome to you too, Sian.
Thank you, Sue.
And then finally, but definitely not least, our last or fourth conversationalist is Naomi Nash. Naomi joins us from the Midlands Entrepreneurial Scheme. She works for Tech Nation and is the Midlands Entrepreneurial Engagement Manager. So this is finding and supporting digital tech founders from across that particular region. But also she's very passionate with learning about diversity, and is a diversity lead for Birmingham Tech. Prior to these roles, Naomi was managing the Innovation Birmingham Tech's incubator, also Entrepreneurs for the Future, and has helped over 250 early stage businesses. So great experience across a very broad range. I think she's been integral to that renaissance in Birmingham for their tech sector, and is a real advocate for innovation and the startup community in that region. So I'd say all three, or maybe if I include myself, all four of us are really passionate about people and diversity, really want to support, I think it's beyond women, but very much how do we support women? I think we've also experienced our own feelings of sometimes maybe feeling alone and not necessarily having the connections. Our day jobs, which gives us that real opportunity to work with people. It gets us to enable us to understand their tech and innovation needs and help them work through the next stages of their journey to achieve success, but also to get that through their broader communities in which we live. So I think we need to really encourage and engage with groups of people that are still underrepresented in this whole field of innovation, tech, sectors of any types, and really reassure people that they are not alone. So let's talk about that. So we're not alone. So let's move on and just think about what it is and what support is out there. So innovation in its own right is really multifaceted. We can start with ideas and have some thoughts on a problem they might solve, or a problem that needs a solution and you're seeking that. Either way, getting from one to the other of those can be challenging, particularly if you see this operating at scale, whatever that scale is. And I think we'll all recognise there are obstacles along the way, and what we set out knowing is certainly not the same as what we learn as we go along the way, and we could be in a very different place when we start. The great thing about that is that there is support along the way, and this support can extend across many boundaries. It's sometimes at that personal level, so I think that falls into that mentorship and coaching that Sian will really talk to us about, and sometimes at a more business level, although in the founding stages they're very much one and the same, the individual and the business, and that can be around access to funding and finance, legal, regulatory matters. It also could be understanding the tech, what's the latest in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, or how do I make my product or service robust and scalable. So as I say, it can be one-to-one, and that helps to really pinpoint areas for development personally, and getting those trusted relationships where I think you can have those open discussions. I think that's really empowering, and I hope Sian can say a bit more about that as we go forward. But I think there's also nothing like being in groups of people where there can be that sort of mix of familiarity, but also some diversity, and do that in a safe setting where you can feel comfortable, but also challenged. And I think that's very supportive. So I think having that stimulating and welcoming environment is really rewarding. And there's a theme that's come up repeatedly when I've been involved in prior discussions around women in innovation. It really resonates with me, that mix of meeting others that are like you, but also others that are not like you, because I think that brings out both our creativity, but also builds resilience in all of us. So I've just said enough. I'll probably say a bit more as we go through, but let's reassure us all on this call and in this conversation that you are not alone, we are not alone. And I'm now going to open this up and start this conversation to think about our own experience of seeking out support. And we all work in that support area, but actually we can need it ourselves. So if I just open this up, and maybe I'll come to you first, Amy, is if you think about yourself as someone working in that support and the innovation environment, when have you needed some extra help yourself, and how have you found it? And maybe you can think about what you wish you might have known or found earlier in your career.
I think because having spent 15 years, I suppose, within education, and then coming over to this new sector that I had no idea what it was about. I was very lucky to be introduced to a few interviews, and I was actually quite scared at first because I thought, oh God, I hope I haven't got this through the connection that I met. And she said, actually, no, I thought you brought something new, something different. And I think what I suppose I learned is that in every sort of sector, in every industry, there are support networks there. There is something always for those who identify as Black, Asian, or minority ethnic. There's always some support networks for those who come from will have no access to social capital, maybe who didn't attend a Russell League university, women. There are those support networks there. I just think you sort of need to create your circle and have that trust in other people around you. I've often sort of, sometimes I think you can lay yourself bare too much, and that comes in the wrong environment, can leave you open. But I think it's just sort of almost finding this inner sanctuary or this inner circle, and I think women are quite good at naturally doing that. I think men, I don't know, I'm going on a personal experience of men. Men, I don't think, are very good at opening up. I think women, I've often used the example, if you came into work one day really upset, someone would whip you into, when you used to go into work, would take you aside, make you a cup of tea. Are you okay? You'd have a cry about it. Maybe you wouldn't have a cry. But I think if a man did that, it would be frowned upon, it'd be looked on, oh gosh, look at him. And I just think women are naturally quite good at reaching out to each other. I worry, I suppose, as a mother of boys, that men aren't able to do that in a way that I think women can. And that's a good thing for us. Maybe that gives us the upper hand slightly.
I mean, it's a great, interesting insight, isn't it? Because being hopefully natural social animals, and it's not to say, because we're all going to be different, so it's not to group us all together in that, but hopefully that ability to get together enables us to be able to join some of the things and the support infrastructures that are around, hopefully in an easier way. So maybe if I just pass to Naomi, because you're also working with groups of tech entrepreneurs. How are you finding that, and maybe again, what experience have you had in looking for support yourself?
Yeah, so when I kind of joined the tech world, networking was suddenly a brand new thing to me, and it was terrifying. It just goes against all our kind of British upper lip. You don't interrupt someone in their conversations, and I found it particularly difficult being in the tech community, which is male dominated, as we know. So go to a networking event, you're not necessarily the only woman there, but it's definitely kind of male dominated. They're all having their little conversations, and how do you even go about trying to pop your head in and saying hi? And I always felt like I had to have something very profound to kind of contribute, to kind of jump in, and that was something that delayed me from creating those networks, because I would get too scared, or I'd be like, oh, that's not good enough. And I wish I had someone to tell me, actually, no, this is not that kind of environment. It's, you just go and you say, hi, what are you doing? You can chat about the weather, it's expected. I think there was little in the way of informal even training on networking. So if you are new to networking, I would definitely say just be yourself. It's not as scary as you think it's going to be, and I just wish I'd known that years before I finally figured that out. I've done women in tech kind of events in the past, and when it kind of first became, I don't know, when that kind of theme started to come about, I started off by doing it was just open to women. And we were frowned upon for doing that. The men were like, oh, you can't do this. It's like, well, we are doing it. We did learn from it, and we changed it going forward so that men were invited too. But what was really interesting from the feedback we had and the networking that I was doing during that female only event was that all the women said how much more comfortable they felt. They felt they could talk about the real problems that they're having within their business quicker than when they could in normal networking circumstances. So I think when we're talking about you're not alone, if you are you know, if you're in those circumstances and you feel like you're the only one struggling, you're definitely not. Like, look for the people that are by themselves and kind of just go and talk to them, with man, woman, whatever, because you can guarantee that, you know, someone else there is probably more than one person who's feeling exactly the same, and you can kind of be that shining light to them.
No, thanks very much, Naomi. I think one of the things that really resonates for me is that mention of the environment. I mean, I think that, you know, having the right environment where people feel as though they can, in a way, share their vulnerabilities by telling about their stories and their particular sort of situations. And maybe that sort of nicely leads into you as well, Sian, because you're working very much at that one-on-one level with a whole range of people. So is there anything you could sort of share about your, you know, just from your own personal experience of when you've needed to reach out and find other people to help yourself?
Definitely, thanks. And there's been so many things that you guys have said that you know, resonate. I don't really like the frame, but you know, makes sense to me. And I was like, yes. And so definitely, when I first went into business by myself, I went from working in a large team and stuff to suddenly working on my own at home. So it was really important for me to not feel alone and to get in touch with other people. And I did start to do some business networking, which was a really odd concept at the time, because coming from sort of science and in a large organization, networking was what you did at the bar at the end of the conference. And so to suddenly go business networking was really odd. And at first I did feel like I stuck out a bit like a sore thumb. I went to some networking events where there were very few other women, which is sometimes an advantage because you do stand out. We tend to be a bit more colourful as well, so we can stand out amongst the grey suits sometimes, which is a good thing, but it can feel a little bit nerve-wracking. So finding the groups that suited me really helped, and that would be my advice to other people as well. Try different groups, try different ways of networking, because you will find the groups that you feel more comfortable in. And absolutely, as Naomi said, sometimes if you find women-only groups, and I've particularly found this when it's sort of group coaching, so not just networking, where you're putting on your shiny self because you're trying to perhaps get some business, but group coaching, particularly in an all-women environment, is suddenly very, very different. And once women are in that environment, they very, very quickly get to the nitty-gritty. There's no posturing, there's no pretending, oh yes, everything's going fine, everything's going great, because when you're networking and how is everybody's brilliant, you know, everything's going really well. But if you're in that safe environment and you can actually be more vulnerable, women very, very quickly get to the nitty gritty. This is what's going on for me. This is what I need help with. This is what I'm struggling with. And that's when the magic happens, because once you can be open like that amongst the right people, that's when you'll move forward. So definitely, I think the key is to find those places where you feel comfortable to do that. And as Amy said, it needs to be the right people around you when you do that. But those people are there, so we just need to find them. And obviously, I'd say get a great coach and do one-to-one or group work. But that's important for me too. So I have benefited massively from being part of coaching groups, and I continue to do that now. It's very, very important for me to be around, whether they're peers, other coaches, or just there are other people that are having coaching at the same time. We need it all the time.
So I think there's some really nice points in there. And one of the things that I guess I'm aware of, so again, my career started quite a few, I can say decades rather than years ago. And as Sian mentioned at the start, materials engineer, and my first job was really supporting the oil and gas sector. So being one of 200 men in the, you know, it was something that was quite the norm then. And so I don't think there either weren't the support groups there at that time, or I just didn't really know about them enough to find them. So thinking about you know, the people that are listening in today, and you know, how they might be able to reach out. There may be, you know, so many different options for people now, but if you were approached by somebody saying that they needed help to support, you know, their network and find, you know, people they can coach with, how would you advise them? What would you help? Where would you point them to? So can I follow through with you, Sian, because you were really leading into this?
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say be open to connecting with everybody, and whether that means literally connecting on something like LinkedIn, but also thinking of all the accidental connections that we make. So yeah, never be afraid to approach somebody, never be afraid to send out a connection request, accept a connection request if you get that, and make the most of that, learn from other people, get to know them as individuals. And yeah, I think that's it. Don't be afraid to get in touch with anyone. So yeah, please connect with me. That would be great.
That would be great. Amy, how about you? Because you're providing a lot of support to people, how would you advise them?
Yeah, it's quite interesting listening to sort of this the sort of fear that was sort of felt when you first go into networking. I sort of the only sort of aspect in which I've done it is where I've gone into events, sort of evangelising about my organisation and what we do, supporting entrepreneurs. But within OneTech, we have accountability circles, groups which is peer-to-peer, very safe environments, just like Sean was describing, where people feel safe, just laying out the issues that they're having, and someone might come up with a sort of supportive comment, or just something that you haven't seen from another angle. But I find it quite interesting with the, I suppose when you have a low stake in a networking event. So when I think I obviously started going out with OneTech after working in education, just being locked in a classroom for 15 years, and then going to all these events and going, oh, you've got to go talk to people, you've got to go tell them about what we do. And I think maybe there's a slight lack of, I don't really care, I'm 40, so I'm going to go and just chat. And sort of, Naomi, as you were saying, it's quite difficult to go to these environments. I think I would have sort of a glass of wine and go, okay, I'm just going to tell them about what we do. I'm going to tell them what we do. And you realise actually there's so many people in these crowds, in these environments, who are going, I don't know, what are you doing here? And it's quite nice. And you immediately sort of do realise that this imposter syndrome, I think everyone feels it. And everyone is there to just sort of reach out for you.
Great, thanks.
No, that doesn't answer the question. What was the question?
Well, the question was very much around, what advice would you give to somebody that might be on the call saying, how do I go about it? How do I connect into some new groups?
Contact OneTech. We have so much access. I mean, I don't think I'm allowed to publicise yet. We have all these accountability circles. We've got access to networks, and I suppose this is it. There are so many organisations out there, not just us, grassroots organisations, who are trying to create their own circles, trying to create their own networks, and they need more people to connect to grow themselves. You sort of connect with one, and it leads to another, and it leads to another, and it leads to another. It's an explosion. So yeah, I suppose backing up what Sian said, just don't feel the fear.
Yeah, it's a nice sort of, it's that ripple effect, isn't it? You start one thing, you start something.
Yeah, and only sort of within a year, you being within sort of this little circle, you realise you go to all these same events and you see people, and the same people knock around, and it's and you sort of become more comfortable in there. And I'm not even an entrepreneur, so.
Yeah, and Naomi, how do you find this? How do you advise people on the right way to get started?
Yeah, so when I took the job at TechNation nearly 2 years ago now, I was already in the tech community within Birmingham, but suddenly I had the whole region, including the East Midlands, which I had no contact with at all, and it was a bit daunting. And I thought, how on earth am I going to do this? But you'll be surprised at how open and welcoming people are. I think it's much more. It's different. I was going to say it's harder, but I think it's different now with lockdown and everything being online. You don't get that same kind of relationship as quickly on a Zoom call or on a YouTube video, and then you can't go and have these chats afterwards. So that's a bit of a hindrance at the moment. But yeah, there are, like you say, Amy, just tons of support and help out there to kind of navigate you through the crazy arena. And another great thing is, so Meetup is kind of where a lot of these take place, and it was in person. Now a lot of meetups have moved online, But there's nothing to stop you from joining a meetup group and then messaging. You can private message somebody else in that group who looks like, you can see if they've attended a previous event, and just saying like, hi, I'm new to this group. You know, if it is in person or when it's in person, you can say like, can we meet just outside and go in together if you know, if you're nervous, or to start having those chats before the event even happens, just so you can kind of relax a little bit. That really helped me, just to have one other person that at least knew who you were when you're walking in. I think LinkedIn is great. Completely agree to reach out. I always kind of think like, well, what's the worst that can happen? I send an in-mail and I don't get a response. That is literally the worst thing that could, well, okay, no, you could get a horrible response back saying like, I don't know you, I don't want to talk to you, but that has never happened. The amount of years I've been on LinkedIn. So, you know, and you shouldn't take it personally if you don't get a response or you don't get that accepted connection. They're either busy, they're not online. There's tons of reasons why. And you just kind of just keep plowing through, and then just look for those mutual connections. Even if it's somebody that, I don't know, you found an old college friend on LinkedIn that happens to be in this kind of a circle you want to get into. Just, that's what LinkedIn is for. It's not like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, where you kind of have to be chummy. It's like, you know, you can say, oh, you know, remember me, cool, thanks. Could you introduce me to these people? And use whatever network you have to expand that. And again, you know, it does take time, it does take a while. I think, you know, I've been in the job nearly 2 years, and I'm growing my network, you know, on a daily, weekly basis. And so don't expect it to happen overnight, is what I'd say as well.
So I think it's an interesting thing here, as that just that final comment you made about growing your network. It never stops, does it? I mean, you're sort of, you know, you're just making contacts all the time. And I think, you know, one of the things I learn is that try to keep in touch with you know, who you do make that contact with, particularly those people that resonate. You know, there's always a chemistry thing, you know, it's just out there. And I think if you find that, just keep it in. And I think once you've got that, you can have gaps of, you know, months, years, and you can still go back to that. So keep that
yeah. And I think just to add to that, I think just on the, you know, not having in-person events at the moment, I used to have, well, probably still do, but I definitely used to have huge like phone phobia. I hated speaking on the phone. I hated video calls even more, to the point where I would Google a number that's calling me if I didn't recognize it, and hopefully I could figure out whether I want to answer it before it rings out. It's terrible at it. And you'd think for my role especially, I should be like on the phone all the time. So when this happened and we all moved online and we were having video calls all the time, I was terrified. But after a little while, I was fine. And now I welcome a phone call because it's like you're off the screen. But what I have also noticed is this kind of this joint trauma that everyone in the world is having, right? So I've found that when I'm having one-to-one Zoom calls with founders that I've never met before in cities I've never been to before, it feels like it's less, let's get down to business, you know, what do you do? How can you help me? How can I help you? That sometimes can be in person. And we kind of have this like, how's it going? Oh, you know, you can see people's homes in the background and maybe some kids are talking. And, you know, I feel like those personal relationships on a one-to-one level can happen a bit quicker actually now that we're all kind of experiencing lockdown together.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like you're always inviting people into your home as well. It's quite a personal thing. You're having these conversations that you would normally have sort of in quite a formal environment, just softened a little bit. And we've got the common conversation of us.
Yeah, we're not going to go viral anymore for having children come in. Sorry, Amy.
That's okay. Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's people have just totally opened up their homes. We were chatting earlier. Someone was started breastfeeding. She said, "I'm really sorry. Someone brought a baby into her." And she's like, "I'll throw this over me." And it's like, fine. But it was fine. And it became, you know, not battering an eyelid anymore. So I just think we've become more accepting of everyone's their struggles, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that has been really nice because, as you say, you get to know the person much more quickly, and actually that person does extend because suddenly, you know, family and pets are suddenly in the screen when certain situations arise, and that's become quite an accepted thing. So I think hopefully there's a bit of a cultural change. And Sian, because I think so, it's just expanding that thought a bit about how do we take advantage of the digital tools that we have, and how are you seeing that working from your coaching point of view, Sian?
Yeah, so obviously since we've been not going out, everything has moved online, and already my coaching, a lot of it was online anyway, but what has moved online for me is more events and also networking events and so on. So I think it's just about embracing everything that is there, and everything that we could do face to face, pretty much we can do online, and sort of look for those opportunities and get over our phobia perhaps of being on a video call, although there can't be anybody who's not been Zooming for the last few months. And yeah, I think it's just a question of getting stuck in and seeing what you can do.
Yeah, and I think that ability now, the difficult thing of being stuck at home does at least sometimes give you the chance to sort of get into some of the events and webinars that are happening quite a lot online, but actually being able to do that at times that will now suit you. So it's back to finding the groups and then the times that suit you, and then participating. I think that's the other thing is just get out there and do it is one of the things, because if you reach out, you'll find so many people like you. It's
yeah, and your opportunity now to join in events with people who are geographically very distant from you, and you haven't got to jump in your car or get in a train. So it does open up the world and make it a lot closer. So there are advantages as well. So I've definitely done a lot of more chatting with people who are in different parts of the UK than I would normally, because everybody's on Zoom.
Yeah. And I think we've found at KTN that you have the ability to reach out. We had a thing where you had, to try and represent the whole of the UK, we might have to have a physical event in very, same event, but in lots of different locations to be able to sort of just, get the reach and make sure we're getting as much engagement as possible. And you can do that quite effectively now online, and it therefore is a great opportunity. And it's just, it's more about how do you get the awareness out there, I think, really. So
I had an interesting stat from Tech Nation yesterday. So one of the programs that we did their kind of kickoff event, and it came up on the slide and it said we had 154% attendance. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that, but what basically, because in the past it would be one person per company would come physically to this kickoff event, but because it was online and accessible to everybody, like maybe one or two or even three of the kind of the management team could join that call as well. And it was just a really fun, interesting stat.
So probably it's worth, if we could just have a bit of time now thinking about what you're actually doing and offering as a somebody that's in that sort of support area. Could you say a bit more specifically about what you're doing from your personally, but also your organisation, and how you might be able to help people that are on this course? So Amy, would you like to kick off for us?
Yeah, sure. So OneTech, we're based in London, and we offer support for female founders and those who come from a BAME background. Not entirely limited to that. Those maybe who haven't gone to a Russell League university, lack access to social capital. We're funded through JP Morgan, the Mayor of London's office, the South London boroughs. We're starting a new programme with the North London boroughs, and we will offer everything from coaching to mentoring, accountability circles, incubators, pre-accelerators, free workspace with WeWork. We don't ask for any money, any equity, any stake in your startup. We're simply there to support you along the way. And we're funded by the number of people that we help to progress from the start to the end, or to keep going, I suppose. So we've currently just launched a number of incubators with the support of JP Morgan, and we'll have 4 cohorts starting from ideation, traction, MPV, and all the way to raising investment. So 12-week programs, and we have bring in our wider network. We've got entrepreneurs in residence who will obviously access to their networks. we had a long conversation actually, Sean, between the difference between coaching and mentoring, which you can I'll let you lead on. But I suppose we host workshops, which we've had going online now since March, up and down with regards to buy-in, because I suppose people went through sort of a Zoom doom and then sort of bought in again. And we've had pre-accelerators run totally online. So yeah, there's lots and lots of activity going on, and everything, like I said, can be funded through one of our funders. So yes, if you'd like to reach out to us.
Yeah, Amy, you've mentioned a couple of times accountability circles, and it's not a phrase I really understand. Can you explain what that is?
And it's not a phrase I really understand either, because I'm not an entrepreneur. My understanding from our entrepreneurs in residence, they're groups with possibly 8 to 10 entrepreneurs in, all either at the same stage, background, and they sort of meet once a week for an hour on a call, and they'll just be discussing any issues that they're having. Maybe ask for advice, support, and it's just someone who is going through what you're going through at the same time, maybe from a different sector, different industry, might have some more insight, might have an experience that they've had that might help you. It's a support group, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, so I think that's really powerful, because I think if you can get with people that are a similar stage in their journey, you know, the experiences will be different, and your market may be different, your sector, but there's going to be commonality, and just sharing that and gaining that sort of insight would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I suppose it's the same as just understanding there are people still, sort of like we were saying at the beginning, who are going through the same struggles, and you're not alone in what you're doing.
Yeah, and that accountability is so important, to have somebody else that's going to say to you, hey Amy, you said last week you were going to do XYZ, how did you get on? It's so important. It's so important for us to know that somebody else cares, that whether we did it or not, but also it helps us to make sure that we did it. And sometimes it's stuff that we can't share with family and friends because it's something very different. They don't quite get it. So being able to have an accountability circle with other people that do get it is so important.
Yeah, and sort of a week can be a long time when you're working by yourself and yourself. And it's just that the fact that someone else has picked that up from the week before. So yeah.
So Sean, do you want to pick up and say, because it sounds like you also run those types of groups, can you say a bit more about what it is you're offering?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a personal performance coach, and I'm based in Macclesfield. But as I like to say, when I go networking in this online world, I am wherever you are. And so I help people to get from where they are to where they want to be quicker than they would on their own. And I can do that by working with people in groups, which is sometimes more affordable, but it's also extremely beneficial because you get all of that other benefit from the other people that are part of your group, or one-to-one. Some people want to do a really kind of in-depth one-to-one relationship, and I'd also run workshops so people can attend for a day. And we sometimes say that's like come and give yourself a reboot and an upgrade, get rid of the old programs you've got perhaps in your head that are slowing you down. Let's get rid of all of those in one day and move you forward. So it's like a coaching session, but with a group of other people that you don't necessarily know at the beginning of the day, which also can be very interesting because other people who are not connected to your issues can have a different perspective and help you to find your way through that. So those are the kind of different kinds of coaching and things that I do. We touched on coaching and mentoring. So I'm very much of the coaching side. So it's helping people to find their own solutions, their own way through. It's not about me necessarily giving advice. My expertise is in the coaching process and not necessarily in the specific issue that somebody is grappling with. But if we can find our own way through, then that's extremely powerful for us.
Sean, and Naomi, can you say a bit about what is happening with your work as well?
Yeah, so Tech Nation is a UK-wide organisation. some people might have known it as Tech UK or as Tech North before we decided to include the Midlands in the middle of it all and become Tech Nation. So we, similarly to Amy, we do kind of support for entrepreneurs at various different stages. Our kind of key kind of companies would be those that are scaling quite quickly. We have various different programs. 3 of them are open for applications now. So that's just my little plug. But I think it's exactly what Sean and Amy were saying about that peer kind of led learning. So our program cohorts, like I say, are all either in the same sector or the same stage or both. And they form a real strong bond and can learn from each other massively, share contacts. And then we also kind of get the next stage of business to come in and say, well, this is what, I was you 2-3 years ago, and this is how I grew and how I developed, as well as trying to get the companies and not just the founder, but their kind of management, kind of C-suite level to scale correctly and well, to, in regards to their company culture, hiring right, being ready for funding and making the right decisions about that. So yeah, we kind of help from this. We do a ton of things, and then as me personally, so I'm kind of doing that, and I'm on the lookout for companies to help with that. But I also speak with many other companies who don't necessarily get onto the programs or don't quite fit the criteria or at a different stage. And I basically, what did one of my colleagues in Yorkshire says that we're like tech gossips, because we find out what's going on and we tell everybody. So it's it's about knowing what's happening, knowing these groups. Making those introductions between different founders, or my network is your network is basically how I kind of come about it. And I think there are many organisations like this, but just kind of search out for those. Again, we don't take any money or any equity. We're government funded. So that's always good. And yeah, we do a whole host of other things. We've got some online learning, our Digital Business Academy. You can go on there and just do like little bite-sized learning for yourself, which has been really great in COVID as people are trying to retrain. And then in regards to kind of like diversity inclusion piece, we are working with the Unmistakable, who are a great company, check them out, to develop a founders toolkit for how to diversify your team. And that should, I think I'm allowed to talk about it, but that should be coming kind of public knowledge in the next couple of months or so. So that'll be exciting. We're basically just here to try and help you achieve what you want to achieve in your business and do it well and fast.
So I'm just going to, for those people that are listening in, it's just making sure they know how to make that connection. So I'm just going to repeat the name. So One Tech Nation, and through your name, Sean, I think Sean Rousell, people can actually reach out there and find you. I think everything we've talked about has it covers the UK or regions of the UK. Do any of you do anything that's connecting through networks internationally as well? I'm throwing this in as an extra sort of question to you. Do you do anything of reaching out? And I think particularly I was thinking of maybe where there's Black, Asian and ethnic minorities, and reaching out to maybe underdeveloped countries, or less well developed, I shouldn't say underdeveloped.
So we've sorry, Amy, you go.
You go first, because I was about to say, actually, no, we don't, unfortunately.
Okay, no, that's fine. It's just to understand.
Yeah, we are going international. We've just hired a head of international, and she's building her team at the moment. And we're going to be concentrating on the Asia South Pacific region. It's more to do with kind of helping UK businesses to expand overseas, as opposed to kind of working within those countries, although there's going to be kind of back and forth with it. But yeah, we're kind of at the start of that journey. But if anyone has any international queries, our head of international, Sam Evans, is I think she knows somebody in every country, I'm sure. She helped me with a founder who was looking for a contact in Peru, and she was like, oh yeah, I know someone in Peru, just off the bat. So yeah, if you are thinking about international expansion or got any questions about any other countries and how to trade there, then just, yeah, get in touch.
Yeah. And I'll also just mention KTN has established KTN Global Alliance, and that's kicking off with some work in Africa through particular funding from government. So I think, again, if people have particular interest there, maybe reach out to Naomi and KTN, and we'll see what we can help. Sian, I don't know whether you do anything at an international front, or is it a UK based?
Yeah. Well, perhaps not in the undeveloped side or underdeveloped side. So, but yes, I have quite often have coaching clients that are outside of the UK, because being able to work with them online, it actually makes no difference. So I seem to have had quite a few clients in France. I don't know why particularly France, but some France and some in the US, and then some sort of non-native people or expats living in the UK. So quite often people are communicating in not their native language at work, so they quite like to have coaching with me in English, because then that helps them with their communication at work. If they're leaders and so on, they want to make sure that they can do that. So yes, definitely working internationally.
Yeah, so I think that's a great angle on today, which I hadn't really thought about too much, but I think when we're networking, we shouldn't be thinking, in very small circles. In a way, you need that mix, and if people are looking to work internationally, then the ability to reach out and extend their networks that way is also really, really powerful. So there's a lot of people joining us today, and hopefully they'll catch us later on YouTube. And so what's interesting also is to know, are there any mechanisms where people can continue to be engaged? There's talking about coming to each of us individually, but just wondered if any fresh ideas of things we can do collectively, or to use this as a starter to extend people's networks. One thing I will mention on that is through KTN, there is a LinkedIn group for women in innovation. So I think people will make sure that is posted up, but that people can really, join that as another online group. I just wondered again if you have any other thoughts and mechanisms for how we can take the community we've just developed now, in having this conversation. How can we help to take people forward with their journey? Sian, do you want to?
Yeah, well, I think that LinkedIn community is a great start, because then we can all connect with each other, not just us on the screen, but whoever is listening in as well, because I want to connect with you too. And and so use that as a starting point, because we've got this conversation as something in common to get started with, but we're likely all women working with a similar interests as well. So it's always about what have we got in common.
Great, thanks. And Amy, any thoughts from you on that?
I'm personally not a Twitter or Instagram user, but being One Tech, we do use it a lot, because quite a huge proportion of our beneficiaries, our participants, are the 18 to 24-year-olds. So I've learned how to use Twitter and Instagram, even though that's not really my thing. And I think what you learned is just the wider connections, that you make use of all the social media that's available to you. There'll be a link from something else to something else, and you could find a connection. And again, it's that rippling effect, but it's not just limited to LinkedIn. I think all the different sort of channels all have a different tone, a different audience. Some organisations will use one over another. And you'll find out more through that, because I know we connected with lots of the grassroots organisations through there. A lot of our delivery partners are very big and very loud, I suppose, on those channels, while we would probably use LinkedIn more. So it's good to get in with them. They'll follow us, we'll follow them. We learn about Instagram and so on.
Right. And Naomi?
I think One of the things that I notice in the Midlands region, but also speaking to my colleagues across the UK in other regions as well, is there is this lack of coaching and mentoring, actually. So really pleased to meet both of you in this chats now. I've got people to signpost to. But what I would say is, if there's anybody on the call who is experienced and does have a successful business, or you know, don't discount yourself from giving back and mentoring back, because especially female mentors are just so scarce. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's the imposter syndrome or something, I'm not sure, but I would say, you know, try and find, even if it's not professional coaching, even if it's an accountability circle, like you're saying, Amy, or just somebody that you trust well enough to just have that accountability to, and to talk to, and to bounce ideas off. I would say just make the most of those kind of things. And yeah, don't be scared to kind of put yourself out there and say, happy to kind of help you, people who are, you know, earlier in their journey or career.
Yeah, thanks. You sparked something off with me as well, because I'm aware, I guess a lot of us are running, you know, some of these online events as well, and making sure that we've got people that are, you know, truly representative of the diversity that we have out there. We're always open to people to come and join us, you know, so there's us 4 here today, but it could be a group of another 4, and it will be on the next webinar session, you know, bringing fresh insight into that from whatever perspective people might have on the call. You know, again, reach out if you think you've got something to offer, and don't even, you know, because you say, people often start saying, I don't necessarily have something to offer, but actually we all do, because I think it is sharing those experiences that we can all learn from. So that type of thing is really helpful, I think. Maybe, I think what we've talked about when we were just going back to what we were saying we were offering, quite often the people out there, they may be at that stage where they're looking for, you know, the next stage of how they're advancing their ideas further forward. That isn't always about money, but obviously money is a great stimulus for moving things forward. KTN works across a number of things, and obviously with Innovate UK, they have a Women in Innovation programme that provides funding at particular periods. But is there anybody else through their programs? Do they also have, do any of you have programs as well that are there that release money to the companies that you work with, or is it more of the support infrastructure that we've talked about so far?
So we've got, we have something called Founders Network, which I've not mentioned. It's just for founders, early stage founders, and that program has joined with Fair Play Capital, who are a VC network, and they are having free female founder open office hours soon. I can't remember the details, I'm afraid, but there is a link I can get out to everybody. There are quite a few. I think the VCs and the angel groups have been challenged about the lack of funding into female-led companies, and I think there are new initiatives coming through. And you know, if you speak to probably any of us on this call, we probably would have quite a few little nuggets of contacts or something to help with any sort of fundraising. But don't specifically, as Tech Nation, have any cash to give the companies, but we do signpost and make those introductions where applicable, and we help get, you know, to get kind of investor ready as well.
Yeah, and this can be quite a complex area because money flows through so many different avenues, and some of it can be very specific local money, but that can sometimes be, you know, well, I suppose if you know about it, you can make the good connections to get access to that and find out more about it. And then there's obviously the sort of the national programs as well. So Amy, is there anything that you have from a one tech point of view?
No, it's really difficult actually. We did try to secure sort of, I suppose it would have been a supplementary salary through this, an agreement that we were trying to put together, but it's so, they just weren't into it. It's, we can sort of introduce exactly the same what Naomi was saying. We can introduce you to investors, networks, put you sort of in front of the VCs, and etc. But it's so difficult. It's so difficult, and this is essentially what people need, is just some cash to sort of keep them going, so they can work on it. The only thing that we do offer is workspace.
Yeah, but actually that's also really powerful, isn't it? So I think I'm just conscious about making sure we end on this really positive note, because I think actually that ability to know and to signpost is really powerful, but also that ability to offer workspace is an amazing saving as well for people. So there's some real...
It's not even just the cost saving, it's also the non-monetary benefit that you get from being in that environment of lots of tech startups, lots of events going on, and again, those connections, they ripple, they go and they go and they go. So yeah, I think the monetary value exceeds what you pay out there.
Absolutely. And Sian, was there anything final from yourself on that point?
I think nothing to add about the funding, apart from that it all comes back to your network again. So build a good network, and there will be people within there that can help you to find the funding that may be available for you, or the ways to save costs, or to access free support and things. So I think we come back full circle, haven't we? It's all about you're not alone, and your network is there, and build your network, and you lean on your network, use your network.
That's great. So you're leading into my summing up. So thanks very much there Sian. I just really want to say a great thank you to Amy, Sian and Naomi, because you've given of yourselves. I think we've been able to pass on some information about where people can find further help, and I think you've also demonstrated that you don't feel alone. We shouldn't feel alone. It's been a great session, so thank you very much. I'm now going to pass on to Xuan, who will help to conclude our conversation this afternoon.
So yes, thank you very much for hosting today's webinar, Sue, and obviously to our fantastic panelists, Amy, Sian and Naomi, for the brilliant discussion and sharing all their knowledge. I really hope that our audience have enjoyed it, and I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us online today. Our next Let's Talk About webinar is taking place on the 11th of November, where Sherry Kutu, founder of Founders for School, will be joined by some more fantastic panelists to talk about inspiring future generations, and we hope that you can join us then as well. If you'd like to keep up to date with the Women in Innovation news and events, please do sign up to our newsletter or visit our programme page, or you can join in on the LinkedIn group, which was mentioned earlier as well. There's also a number of other series of webinars and of opportunities that we offer out. And I should mention that we have a partnership with an organisation called Inventure, who's based up in the north, and they also run Women in Innovation events and programs as well. So please do look out for both to sign up to get more support from. Once again, I'd like to express a massive thank you to Sue Dunkerton for hosting the wonderful session today, all of our panelists and everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time. So goodbye and thank you.